Hello everyone! We are students from the Science Student Chapter Prague, and today we are delighted to introduce our special guest lecturer, Professor Carola-Bibiane Schönlieb from the University of Cambridge. Carola is originally from Austria and she completed her PhD at Cambridge in 2009. After her postdoctoral studies, she returned to Cambridge and now she is a professor of applied mathematics and she leads the Cambridge Image Analysis Group. Moreover, she leads the SCIEM activity group on imaging sciences and she chairs the Applied Mathematics Committee of the European Mathematical Society. Her work is focused on variational methods, PDEs, and machine learning for image analysis and image processing. During her career, she was honored with many prizes and awards, but let me mention only the most recent one. Last month, she became a SCIEM Fellow for her important contributions to mathematical imaging, inverse problems, and applied partial differential equations, as well as outstanding leadership and service. Although we would be very much interested in her research work, she is here today to talk about a slightly different topic, but it is maybe even more important topic for us young researchers. Carola will share with us her insight on how to become a real scientist from a struggling PhD student. We are really sorry for some technical problems we had during the lecture. There are two missing parts of video recording, one part at the very beginning and a small part during the talk. We hope you will like the lecture anyways, so let's get started. And thanks for watching.
I worked in Austria, I worked in Germany, I'm working now in the UK. At the moment, I am Professor of Applied Mathematics at Cambridge. And then there are a few kind of general things about me. I love my dog. I have a dog. I've had a dog for the last 20 years. And the most amazing thing to me is this very special interaction with the dog. So that's definitely enriching my life a lot. I love hiking, traveling, being outside in general. I love collaboration. So this is also going back to how I'm seeing a successful scientist picture, right? So really doing things together. And I'm very passionate also about encouraging women in mathematics. And I've done also a lot. You've seen as the European Women in Mathematics Association as one of my logos for this talk. So it's something that is also quite influencing talks like this, the hat that I'm wearing through that. I develop mathematical methods for imaging, for all kinds of problems in imaging, from, image restoration to motion estimation from videos to solving inverse problems like computer tomography or magnetic resonance tomography, making images better, or quantifying information in images. And from a mathematical viewpoint, this is a wonderful topic because it can contain a lot of different mathematics. So I'm originally coming from an applied PDE background, but through imaging, I've been in touch with ideas from harmonic analysis, from optimization, of course, machine learning, a lot of functional analysis, a lot of numerical analysis in general, statistics. Yeah, so it's a very, very rich topic, and you can have your take on it, and also it has a lot of applications, as you can imagine. And here you see just a couple from the kind of things that I've been doing. So zooming into this a little bit, what I thought is also helpful to have two sides of my CV next to each other. On the left is the official one, and on the right is the kind of unofficial one, the kind of things that happen in the background without you putting this into an application when you apply for jobs. But that I think are still quite important to discuss in a context like this. So that gets a little bit personal. I hope you're okay with that. I'm happy with that. But all right. So the left, I mean, I kind of talked about, but I can briefly say that again. So I'm Austrian. I did my undergrads in Salzburg, very, very small math department, where I've also initially started actually a PhD that didn't end up very well, I have to say. So this is an example of sometimes if you're a struggling PhD student and it's not improving, it might not be, necessarily your fault, but it might just be not the best place to do your PhD in, or not the best supervisor, which was in my case the reason. So I was actually almost quitting after my Salzburg experience. But at that time, the head of department in Salzburg was the one who rescued me, and he said, "You shouldn't quit your PhD. You should leave Salzburg." And that's what I did. And first, I went to Vienna. I worked with Peter Markovic. Peter Markovic is an applied PD person. He ended up being my PhD supervisor. With him, I then moved to Cambridge. So the story was somehow like this: that I started with him, and then I think 2 years into my PhD or something like this, he moved to Cambridge, and he asked me to come with him. So if you're looking now at the unofficial side of my of the CV during all of this time of undergrad and PhD, you see there has been quite a transition from being in a quite protected family environment, struggling a lot with self-confidence. By the way, I think this is a general thing that people in mathematics have, because we just having such tough problems to solve all the time. But that, in my case, was not just related to mathematics, but also to this experience with my first PhD supervisor. I moved to an environment that was super enriching. When I came to Vienna, I was part of a PhD training program that, again, opened up my perspective a lot. And I was for the first time really traveling on my own to all kinds of places, and even for longer periods. Yeah, so my PhD supervisor, and this is another thing that is already, kind of advice for you that I kind of inherited from him, was that he really wanted us to not just stay in Vienna, but to really experience research also at other institutions, which is, part of academic life, and that mathematics is such an international subject. And it really kind of opens your eyes when you do this. So in my case, I was in Buenos Aires for 3 months, which was wonderful, but it was also very scary before I did it. So a lot of these steps, take a lot of courage, but once you've overcome it, it's the most wonderful experience. So then, after finishing my PhD, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. I'm not sure lots of people are certain about the next steps at any stage in your life. And so sometimes it just happens that you say, okay, I'm just going to try that. I always thought I'm going to try the academic career. If it doesn't work, I'm sure I can find an okayish job in industry. I can always, give up or not give up, but change my mind and just do something else. So I started with a postdoc. And then in my case, it was very, very quick after the PhD. I just did 1 year of a postdoc, and I got a permanent position. I got a lectureship in Cambridge, and that was just lack of timing, basically. That in exactly at that time, a lectureship opened that fitted my profile just almost perfectly. And so that also kind of coincided with me meeting my husband, who is also a mathematician. He also works, by the way, in PDEs. And we were looking to solve the two-body in this period, building, my own research path, applying for research grants was very influential. but was also influential. And here I have partnership. You can put friendship or whatever, in your case, holds. Having a supportive, let's say, social network was very, very important. There are lots of things you're doing new and fresh. There are lots of things you're not so sure about, and you need this encouragement here and there. That could, by the way, be a social network, could also be a mentor-mentee relationship. Mentors are also a really great way to support you in this journey on in the career ladder and growing up in academia. So I got promoted. The kind of usual way in Cambridge is it's reader, or internationally would maybe be associate professor, and then professor. I was, in addition to kind of building my own research agenda and my own research track record, I was also taking up several leadership positions, both within Cambridge. I was the director of a research institute for many years. I've been director of a multidisciplinary research center for many years. And that has definitely shaped me a lot. And I also took up leadership positions, like Jana mentioned, within SIAM, but also within associations like the EWM or things like that. So that was on the one hand, taking on this academic leadership position was something that has influenced me a lot. Also balancing out to what you actually do and to what you say yes and what you say no was quite important. And at the same time, on the private life side, there was also the wish to create a family, and that took us a lot of energy over many years, but we succeeded in the end, which is great. But that definitely, that all plays together with and it can all play together, but that is all, is something that that also happens in life, but that can happen in such a situation as well, and is manageable. Right. And so this is where we are now. So the kind of work life that I have now is kind of roughly pictured in these 4 examples here. So a lot of the work that I do is together with my research group. Most of the work that I do is together with my research group. So I have a lot of meetings. My day is full of meetings with PhD students and postdocs. Either these meetings are, just very, very quick meetings where they are just showing me what they have done in the last 2 weeks or so, or we really have allocated meetings where we actually have the opportunity to have some more discussions on the blackboard. So this is, I would say, almost more than 50% of what I'm doing. Then there is a lot, not always in this nice position. There is a lot of sitting in front of the computer, writing papers, writing emails, reading papers, reading articles. There is a lot of that as well, and then there is a lot of research communication that I love doing. So this kind of is the life. And there are also, in addition to meeting early career researchers, there is also of course a lot of committee meetings, which, if you are a mathematician or if you're a researcher in general, you want to keep kind of minimal as possible and only pick the ones that are interesting. But this is a kind of necessary thing that that we are taking on when we're working at the university to help keep it alive and keep the organization running. And that is also linked to some of these leadership positions as well. And then there is, of course, a lot of traveling, which is, partially linked to this research communication, but which is also linked to having collaborations with people around the world. And so in order to really do something meaningful, you often need to spend some really quality time together in order to develop things, especially at the beginning of projects. And then that is complemented to what my life, in private looks like. So a big, really important part of my life is my family that has now also been enriched by our little son, Paul, the dog, of course, and hiking to beautiful places. This is in Salzburg. This is a mountain lake that we went up to several times. There's a beautiful one called Seewaldsee in Salzburg, in the kind of Salzburg countryside. And yeah, doing kind of fun things as well. I love running. I haven't been running so much since this little guy is around. I need to pick that up again when I get more sleep. But this is something we have been doing, which was great fun. This is called the Muddy Dog Challenge, which well, only for those who are into dogs was a great thing, because you go through mud and lots of water and things like this together, and this was fun both for us and for her. Okay, so that's, I think, quite good to maybe say, because I think mathematics is great, and while for a certain amount of time we are so fascinated by a problem and so kind of hinged towards it that we want to work on it like 24/7. But there are other things in life as well, which are also the ones that give us more energy again. So few things before I go to the general part. I'm the first one in my family to go to the university. I think that's also maybe important to say, especially for those who are in a similar situation. So you can do it, even you can even become a professor in Cambridge if you're starting from such a baseline. Was that intentional interruption, or maybe not? And I think this, as I maybe hinted towards this already when talking about my kind of unofficial CV, it took a lot of courage going all these steps, from this kind of sheltered environment of my family, leaving my home university, and ending up in Cambridge, which actually one of my visiting PhD students at the moment, I had lunch with him yesterday, and he said, how do you manage to not have this imposter syndrome all the time while working in Cambridge? And it's a very valid point, right? But by the way, if you're suffering from imposter syndrome, it gets more manageable with age. I think age and experience are, definitely helping. So every step took courage, but it's so worth it. I really encourage you all to take this step and pick up these opportunities, even if they sometimes feel they take you out of your comfort zone. I mean, in a way, being a mathematician, we are out of our comfort zone a lot of times, right? We are kind of used to this on an abstract level, but now I'm encouraging you also to do this on a more life level. Find your own way. We talked about this, and I really think, and if you love what you do, and this is also linked to you should do it your own way, because this is the only way you will be happy. You will have so much energy to do it and to be successful. So finding out what you want to do is one of the things to solve and to think about. Okay, so Now, a little bit more general thoughts, and then maybe discussion would be nice to have, about doing a PhD, being a researcher, and having an academic career. So, so first of all, when you're starting your PhD and you're doing research, right? So I was thinking about some of the things that are important, in particular research related, when you want to do a successful PhD, right? Okay, so first thing, if you have a research idea, before doing anything else, it's so important to scan the literature for what the state of the art is, to really avoid reinventing the wheel, right? You really want to understand what is known and what is not known. And this is partially also why working with your PhD supervisor is so important, because they will have a much better idea about that. But that's really, really important to do that. What is equally important is to really check also the timeliness of your research topic. That is really also quite linked to your job opportunities that you have afterwards. To check, is there really a lot of potential for new results and directions in this research area, and are people still publishing on this problem or this class of problems? How large is the community working in this field, right? Because these are, your future kind of postdoc employers or things like that. The other thing that is really important is to practice as close as possible relationship with your PhD supervisor, in the sense that they are the ones who will keep you accountable and who will give you feedback. And so it's really, no matter how you're working, whether you are anyway working in very close collaboration with your PhD supervisor, or whether you're really working individually, independently, having regular meetings with your PhD supervisor is so important. If you're working closely with them anyway, then it's clear. Even if you're not, having someone giving you feedback from an objective viewpoint is really quite important. And I would really say, I would really put regular meetings with your supervisor in your calendar. Even if you haven't made much progress, you should still meet. This is one of the main rules you also learn as a PhD supervisor, right? We also need to go through these trainings. It's so important to meet the students on a regular basis, just to, keep things running. Discussion is key. So in addition to talking with your PhD supervisor, of course, it's really a good opportunity as well to talk with your fellow PhD students. And that's, that they could be doing something very different to you, of course, but that actually in a way doesn't matter. So it's often actually even more interesting if they're doing something very, very different, because they might have nice ideas about what you're doing. But it's just, it's bouncing off ideas. It's bouncing ideas off others. And it also, helps in particular if you're stuck. And that happens in a PhD, right? In the PhD, it's this kind of oscillation, right? That takes you up and down a landscape, an emotional landscape as well. And so it's really important for your mental health to talk to others, particularly if you're kind of in a kind of negative dead end kind of situation. Next bullet point: when writing your first paper, really, or even before writing your first paper, really do approach this again as you do as a mathematician, basically. Yeah. So do look at other papers which you really liked, and maybe also other papers that have been published in journals that are kind of the journals that people in your community are publishing in, or that you want to publish in. and really look at them with a very structured, systematic viewpoint. Try to analyze them. How are they structured? And link to that also inform yourself on how to write mathematics. And that's not a trivial thing. You know, I've had many PhD students, but you can't, it's not a natural talent that you can write good math texts. I've put one reference here. I thought that's a very good one by Nick Hyam. You know, for instance, that you should never start a sentence with a mathematical symbol and things like this. I've seen so many people do that. It's not good style. Yeah, so these things are good to do. Once you've written a paper, before submitting it, try to get as much feedback from others as possible. The truth of the matter is that you know, that would be the theory. You know, I have a colleague here, actually a very, very good friend of mine, who I usually go and ask for advice. And he said, you know, Carola, I'm very good in theory. I'm just not very good in practice. So that's the theory, right? So then the practice might look different, but in theory, it would be super good to get as much feedback from others on writing papers. Later, this will also mean that will also affect like writing grant proposals and so on and so forth. And always also think that you know, your PhD sets up your path towards an academic career if you want to do an academic career, that is. And while doing great research is the foundation, it is also really important to be able to communicate it. And so it's still related to research. It's really important to also get practice and training to give talks and presentations. And again, no one is a natural talent, really, and really almost no. I mean, I know no one. So this just needs training to give good talks. Then some general thoughts. A PhD is not a 9-to-5 job. It will be part of your life for the next 3 to 4 years, 24/7. And this really doesn't mean you need to turn into a workaholic, and it cannot, because you need the energy. But it means that you will be going the extra mile here and then. And that you will not mind it, because you will love what you do. This is, you know, you have picked your PhD. A PhD is an up and down journey, and it is important to be remembering that things will go up again when you're in kind of a longish down phase. Depending on your personality, it could be a good strategy to always pursue 2 research projects in parallel. That worked really well for me, because if you're stuck on one, you can go back to the other. And then doing a PhD, doing research becomes really another dimension when you travel and you pursue international collaborations. And I would say this is really something, again, that I am advising my PhD students in, that they should try to spend some period of time abroad during their PhD. You know, again, sometimes, you know, these are these unique opportunities that are given to you in an academic environment. So take them. They're really mind widening. Do go to summer schools is another thing I always say, because as a PhD student, is one of the things you can almost only do when you're a PhD student. Afterwards, you can go to summer schools, but you're the one who's lecturing. Do go and put yourself out there and present at workshops, conferences, seminars. Do accept invitations to give talks. I would say 100% of the time. Okay, so I think that's really an important thing. This is the way you get, you know, you practice, but you communicate your results, and you get known in the community, which is later going to give you, you know, possibly a job if you want to stay in academia. In general, make the most out of opportunities that are presented to you. Very briefly, because I realized that I'm talking far too long, because you also want to ask some questions. what is important for an academic career? Briefly, a few bullet points. Be curious, be ambitious, be passionate, and be hardworking. Research and publications are really the most important one for getting a permanent position afterwards. Make the most of opportunities presented to you. Appears everywhere in, you know, how I'm thinking about career and successful PhD and things like this. I think this is a really important one in anything that you do. Remain open and flexible in your thinking and your expectations to life. You know, an academic career often requires, I don't think I don't think about it in terms of that it requires you to maybe go to different institutions or to different countries, but I again see it as an opportunity that you can work wherever you want to. But it's also part of the game, right? That you do this and you're remaining flexible about how you think life should go. You know, like my husband and I, we are working at institutions that are 200 kilometers apart from each other, and we have managed for the last 15 years, and we even have a child together now, and it works, right? So the family picture doesn't need to be always the classical family picture. Anyway, it will not, right? If you know, if you're in this kind of if you're in modern times. Talk about your research and discuss with others. Again, really, really important for an academic career. Get your own research and travel funding. So that partially can work already when you're a PhD student, but it's mainly for when you're a postdoc. You know, apply for fellowships and things like this. You have much better chances for getting a permanent position afterwards. Be present online. I think it's really pays off to invest into creating a website. It can be a super simple website, but it should say something about yourself, have a picture on it, have your publications there. Try to get some teaching experience. Again, I would say research is the most important one, so don't overdo the teaching experience, but a little bit of teaching experience is important. Outreach is a great way also for getting training and communication. Mentoring and coaching is also a great way to grow and to help the next generation in turn. So you could do mentoring as well. You know, I've been setting up in Salzburg a mentoring program for undergraduate students that the PhD students were the mentors for. And again, I think what I've seen again in my life a lot, and this is in particular also linked to the bullet point about staying flexible about how you think life should be. You need a supportive social network around you. At least that's my perspective. For me, this was my husband, who you know, we kind of make decisions together about where life and work will take us. And I think that's quite important as a, you know, not if you have someone who is not at all flexible, I think that's often a problem in academia. So if you're at the end of your PhD, what do you need to do? And this is in particular if you're thinking about an academic career. Yeah. So what are the steps involved when you're at the end of your PhD? The usual academic career path is that you are a postdoc, maybe you're a research fellow, and then you become then you get a faculty position, an assistant professor position, and then you kind of are promoted up the ranks. So it's important that you proactively reach out to academics, research groups you would be interested in working with for your postdoc would be the natural next step. Maybe they have a position, right? Sometimes people are not advertising. Proactive applications are very welcome. For me, I can tell you this is very important. Some of these applications need maybe 1 year of lead time, in particular if you think about research fellowships, they have certain deadlines and there is a decision process involved. So plan sufficiently in advance. There is a difference between postdocs, kind of postdocs working with a mentor or a supervisor, and research fellowships, which are usually independent, where you write your own research project that you want to do, and you're hosted by someone in an institutions. So that is also something to take into account, because the person you are working with, if you're doing a postdoc, that can be super successful, but it's important that you that you know what this looks like with this particular person, right? So how much freedom to develop your own ideas do you have there? Think about potential reference letter writers early is also very important, and put yourself out there into your research community so your potential future employers know you, right? Especially in the last year of your PhD, try really to communicate and to go to workshops and conferences as much as possible. Get someone who knows the system in the country you're applying in to give feedback on your application material. And if invited for interview, do practice with others, okay? Again, interview practice is super important, right? It's not just important to practice the presentation, but also the interview. And then, yeah, anything else? I'm happy to take now questions. Thank you.